Oh man, how crazy is that? We're seeing a massive Bitcoin breakout after Bitcoin takes a huge dive to almost $94,000 here. We've seen total panic in the market. Now Bitcoin is correcting back up to almost $100,000. We're seeing those Valhalla candle moves again, and it's really taking off now. And we need to pay close attention now what's happening here. I had already recorded the video. While recording, Bitcoin is shooting up massively. And all of a sudden, the whole bearish sentiment flips back to bullish. It looks like the cascading wave we saw going down, where the long positions got liquidated, is happening now upwards because now the short positions are getting leveraged, and now the short positions are being liquidated. And then we see a cascade upwards that's pumping Bitcoin up massively. And that's basically exactly what I said. We're just seeing a bear trap here. Yesterday, I uploaded the video. Warning, guys, it's a bear trap. And what happened? We have the bear trap. It was nothing more than an intelligence test to see if you're a hardcore hodler, whether you stick it out, hold on, and don't let yourself get all worked up about it. So congratulations to everyone who isn't letting themselves get all worked up right now. I've basically been talking about a scenario here from Arthur Hayes, who still thinks that we could still correct down to $70,000. I'll get into that in the next part of the video. But why can Bitcoin still rise to $250,000 in the long run, according to Arthur Hayes, and why you should act quickly now? Because a window has now opened up that you definitely should take advantage of. That's why this video is coming out now, the one I actually recorded before this one, where there's now been a massive turn. It's really crazy. This is happening in almost every video right now. I make a video, then I watch what happens. All of a sudden, a complete 180, everything has changed. But dive right into it. Move your Bitcoin and act fast now. We currently have massive background information on the Bitcoin sell-off. Arthur Hayes is warning here about a pullback to as low as 70,000 US dollars. And it's really taking off right now. Because now a lot of people are panicking about a bigger sell-off. Let's take a look at what's behind it. Whether the sell-off is already over or if there's going to be another pullback down. Arthur Hayes is also giving the all-clear and says that after this pullback, we're going to see a massive breakout. He also gives reasons for that. Also, something has happened now. That happens so rarely in the Bitcoin space and that you definitely should take advantage of. And that's why you really need to act fast here. Because time is really running out here. But we'll take a look at that at the end. First, let's take a look at Michael Saylor. Microstrategy actually didn't buy any Bitcoin this Monday morning for the first time in 3 months. And now a lot of people have already flipped out. They said, now Microstrategy has bought at the top. Now there's a pullback, and now Microstrategy isn't buying any more Bitcoin. But that's probably more due to regulatory reasons, because this Wednesday, the next quarterly numbers are coming up. And that's just regulatory. It seems like it's not possible for MicroStrategy to tinker with anything in the treasury or something like that before this. Because then the numbers will probably be distorted or won't be accurate anymore. They're very current. I don't know. In any case, it's not possible from a regulatory standpoint. And here you can definitely give the all clear. MicroStrategy probably would have loved to scoop up this dip if it were regulatory possible. And we'll also get to the dangers that are currently lurking in the Bitcoin market. And Arthur Hayes' prediction is that there's going to be a massive pullback down. But we really need to take a look. What's happening here now? Because now panic reports are even being spread here. Like here from Christian Roll, whom I actually appreciate a lot, with whom I also did an interview, who really has some very, very basic points. But with Bitcoin, it's also very, very critical, which is totally fine. But now, for example, a screenshot is being shared. Here you can see Bitcoin on a 1-week basis. And then Christian Roll says, so-called stores of value in comparison. Bitcoin versus gold versus over. The volatility doesn't really fit the narrative of digital gold. And now he's just taking gold, silver, and Bitcoin on a 1-week basis and basically presenting the whole thing like this. Yeah, they're saying Bitcoin isn't a good store of value right now because on a 1-week basis, the volatility is too high and Bitcoin is losing out compared to gold and silver. You really have to be careful about that when people are basically using this pullback to spread their panic or their anti-Bitcoin narratives. There are also other anti-Bitcoin folks who are hating on Bitcoin right now. For example, Peter Schiff is back at it with his comments that here Bitcoin massively crashing and that MicroStrategy is getting into trouble again. You really have to stay cool here. There were also some cool comments here about the 1-week time frame that was chosen. That would be nitpicking here. That's exactly the Maurice Hofchen tactic. Bitcoin is somehow the best performing asset of the last 15 years, but then they pick exactly that 1 week where Bitcoin is correcting. And then you say, you see here, Bitcoin isn't a good store of value. Here, Leo Haste writes about it. Every day I wake up and I'm grateful that I don't have the time preference of a mayfly. So that's a really important point here. that you look at the whole thing from a long-term perspective and not on a weekly basis. That actually shakes me up because I would have thought of Christian Roll as a long-term thinking investor. He basically comes from the thread file area, is known for dividend investments and whatever. You should really know that you're more focused on the long term in the stock market and not just looking at it on a weekly basis, looking at the whole picture. Here Ronan writes, "You're aware that you're just showing a big advantage of Bitcoin in this graphic. Or have you ever successfully traded Sunday gold or silver?" That's the next thing. Bitcoin is crashing here on a Sunday. And that, in the end, in relation to gold and silver, which aren't really being traded here. Of course, you can trade gold too, I'd say. Maybe trade peer-to-peer on Sundays, like that. This is a physical product that you can easily send back and forth. But if you want to trade gold in the form of ETFs or something like that, then it obviously doesn't work on a Sunday or a Saturday. Here Atomic even says he's going to take it up a notch. Dear Christian, did they shit in your brain or is this a deliberate deception? When you use a 1-week time frame for the best performing asset in the world, which has risen by 134.36% in a year, that's obviously phrased a bit derogatorily, and I apologize for that. So, I don't want to come off as disrespectful to anyone here. But the point he's making here about the 134% and now picking just that 1 week, where Bitcoin is correcting here, he's really spot on here. Very accurate. But now we really need to take a look at Arthur Hayes. He's usually very, very bullish. He's still very, very bullish. He's expecting a Bitcoin price of $250,000 this year. Here. But he says, yeah, hey guys, it could really get ugly now. And you also have to say the report he wrote here. That didn't just come out today or anything. It actually came out about 5 days ago. So he has generally called the crash here. He didn't exactly call for the crash to $70,000 here. He's assuming that we could drop back down to $70,000 to $75,000 here. And he gives it a 60% chance that this will happen. He says here, read it, things are getting ugly now. But I think Bitcoin will drop to $70,000 to $75,000. Here. Before it rises to $250,000 by the end of the year. And now we're also looking at why we need another massive swing here. Why it needs to be massive. Needs a swing out. Why massive again? Everything that needs to be liquidated. Why everything needs to be flushed out again, and why that's generally a healthy thing. And Bitcoin can pump to new all-time highs here. But in the short term, we definitely need to be careful. British Hodl is also saying something very interesting. To that, he says here, I heard that was the biggest liquidation in crypto history. And then he wonderfully says, nature heals the shitcoining memes and the soul here. It's time for Bitcoin to wake up and take us into the land. To lead the God handles. So he says here, in order for us to have God handles, we basically need to flush out the whole Bitcoin and the entire memecoin story. And so on. We need to get rid of all the over-leveraged crap. I mean, that's a bit exaggerated, sorry for the word. It just slipped out of my mouth. The whole memecoin story, the whole leverage situation, all of that needs to be liquidated once. Then we can have a new, healthier foundation. And then you can massively climb up from here. There's also a very special event that Arthur Hayes is expecting here. That will make Bitcoin explode. In the article he published here, he basically called or said, predicted, however you want to put it, that the Trump token was basically the local top. So that was just a top signal. But I would say, of course, we all know that the bear market is still actually, I mean, there's a lot of room to go up. But there are always some local tops and then pullbacks. And here, Arthur Hayes basically called it just 4 or 5 days ago. Hey, this has to be the top now, because that can't be that here. Donald Trump is throwing out meme coins and stuff that has to go through a pullback first. Here, we need to form a new foundation. And now, of course, Bitcoin has also kind of crashed down here. And that was basically it here. Now, here's a hit from Arthur Hayes where he said, okay, that was the top with the Trump coin, and now we're going to see a pullback. He says here, the hits should keep coming. Until the morals get better, it's going to keep going down like this for a while. Until people wake up again, understand, hey, this whole shitcoin saga needs to stop. We might need to focus back on Bitcoin now. We can also see that we have a very, very high Bitcoin dominance. We're also seeing that in this cycle, let's say, there isn't really an altcoin season. There are very, very few coins that really manage to outperform Bitcoin here. Or not as many as maybe in past years, where then somehow every Bitcoin is mined. And this year we have, and in this bull run, we have a much, much higher Bitcoin dominance. It says here, the pain stops when a ThreadFi company is on the brink of bankruptcy. Then the Fed reluctantly joins Team Trump and reluctantly prints this money. And then you better be ready to buy crypto here, if you haven't bought before. So he's warning here, hey, it's going to go down a bit more, but then get ready. Fill your pockets, buy as much as you can. because something is going to happen in the ThreatFi world. Some bank is going to go bankrupt. Some brokerage house, or what do I know? A big institution. Something that, I don't know, needs a bailout package, something that's too big to fail. And then they'll fire up the printing press. And then the dollar will also depreciate massively. And then liquidity will rise. Global. Then QE programs will be launched. So, like it's already happening in Canada. Could it also be that the trade war here is also contributing to that and basically amplifying it? And then really get ready, because then Bitcoin is absolutely ready here to break out parabolically. And then we see a 250,000 coming in the rest of the year. US dollar Valhalla candle that's coming our way. At least according to Art for Haste. These aren't my theses here, but the theses from Art for Haste. And they are really, really interesting. Whether it will really be catapulted up to 250,000 US dollars. You don't know. But I'd say that's not really a far-fetched scenario where you just take one more small correction. One more time, I'd say it does one last flush, and then I'd say picks up speed again for one last melt up before we hit the next peak. And here's the question. Was this little dip down to 94,000 US dollars already the flush we needed to then catapult us up to 250,000 US dollars? That it needed to then catapult us up to 250,000 US dollars? Or delve deeper like H.R. Hayes says it has to go deeper. That's ultimately the big question. And then maybe we head into a bear market. Some people assume that there won't be a real bear market, but it will be more of a subdued bear market, or something like that, because now all the institutional players are getting involved. It's really, really interesting. I also saw a statistic here, as you can see here, that in the end, oh, now you can't really see it. But now you can't really see it here, it's a bit blurry. But here, institutions are taking your Bitcoin, buddy. So, of course, these pullbacks are being taken advantage of by institutional players to buy Bitcoin at a good price. And a lot of people are going to get really wrecked here because they either aren't buying back in now, get panicked, or even make panic sales. And that's basically what I always say. Hey folks, just stay cool. What I also found interesting, there was a statement from JP Morgan saying that a permanent US tariff increase of 25% could plunge Mexico and Canada into a recession. Morgan Stanley sees this as the baseline scenario for Mexico. It's going to be really exciting for the entire global economy. I just read this in X. And that's of course the next thing I mentioned in the last video as well. That the tariffs can basically create massive liquidity in the market. Because recessions are just being triggered here. Inflations are being triggered. Problems, economic problems. And you solve these economic problems like in our MMT world. Write it down in the comments below. You do that with the money printing press, as there are no options. There are options, or people just have too short of a time preference and aren't interested. Basically to convert the economy to a hard currency standard. And now we come to the topic that I mentioned to you at the beginning, that you should really take advantage of, this opportunity. You really need to be quick now. And it's not like I'm trying to sell you anything, or that I'm trying to push some kind of course or something on you. Go ahead and get something now somehow really quickly. Or buy Bitcoin really quickly or something. And oh, this is about the Mempool, and we have something like this here. Haven't seen this in a really long time, that the Mempool is so empty here. Take a look at this. Right now, the Mempool only has 1 sat per VByte. So the transaction fees are extremely, extremely low. That was actually a picture from yesterday. In the meantime, I just took a quick look. Transaction costs are back to 2 satoshis per VByte. That means transactions in the Mempool are currently very, very cheap. So you should definitely take advantage of this time now. If you want to consolidate any transactions, for example, if you want to make some larger transactions here, if you want to somehow, you want to move a lot back and forth, or if you want to open any channels, any lightning channels, I don't know, if you just want to move liquidity back and forth. In the Bitcoin blockchain, you should take this opportunity now to be able to move Bitcoin cheaply here. Because with Bitcoin, it's just a supply and demand thing. In the end, there's the Mempool, but it's not just one Mempool. There are actually a ton of them. Everyone has their own Mempool on their own node. And that's where all the transactions are collected. They could potentially be broadcasted into the Bitcoin network. And if very, very few people want to make Bitcoin transactions right now, then the transaction fees just drop really low. And these transaction fees are currently at a low point we haven't seen in a long time. So you definitely need to take advantage of this opportunity now. If you want to transfer anything back and forth here and actively use the Bitcoin blockchain. And then it's also very important for you to keep this in mind. In 5 days, I'm presenting my new Bitcoin community, the Bitcoin Advantage. And here, all expectations are already being exceeded. There are already over 750 Bitcoin on the waiting list. And I'm also excited about the quality of the people who are involved here. And for the live call participants, there's a special highlight. I'm giving away prizes worth 5,000 euros. Only waitlist participants who are on the call can take part. And I'll also link the waitlist down below in the Telegram group where you can feel free to join. So you'll be part of this incredible group. Absolutely recommend it. And if you want to secure your Bitcoin as best as possible, I'll also put a link down below to a hardware wallet where you can easily protect your Bitcoin from hackers, theft, and all that stuff and hold your Bitcoin securely on your own. With the code Bitcoin is still available here. 10% off hardware wallet. Get hardware. Guys, see you. Peace out.